The silence in the canal waters can hold secrets for decades, but sometimes the truth still struggles to break the surface. November 7th, 1994, a chill wind swept through the narrow streets of Hebden Bridge, a picturesque market in a town nestled deep in the Calder Valley of West Yorkshire. It was a Monday, the kind of evening where the golden glow from a cottage window felt like a comforting embrace against an encroaching darkness. 13-year-old Lindsay Rimer, a girl on the cusp of womanhood, stepped out of her family home for a simple errand: a box of cornflakes from the local spa. She was last seen captured by the grainy eye of the CCTV camera, a fleeting image in the vast, indifferent tapestry of the night. But Lindsay would not return home. Her bed remained undisturbed, her paper round undelivered the next morning, and for 5 agonizing months the quiet rhythms of Hebden Bridge were shattered by a question that echoed through the valley like a scream. Where was Lindsay? Her family searched, the community rallied, and the police scoured the landscape, but the truth refused to yield her. Until one spring day, the Rochdale Canal, a dark, winding artery through the heart of the landscape, reluctantly gave up its chilling secret.
Welcome to Chilling Discoveries, where I deep dive into the darkest corner of the internet to uncover the grim tales from around the world. If it's eerie, mysterious, or just plain chilling, you'll find it here. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hebden Bridge was in the autumn of 1994 was a place of a close-knit community where the steep, cobbled streets whispered tales of industry and tradition. Lindsay Rimer, born on February 17th, 1981, lived with her parents, 2 sisters and brother in their family home on Cambridge Street. She was in Year 9 at Calder High School, a popular pupil known to be bright and inquisitive, an independent spirit blossoming into an early womanhood. Her older sister Kate would later describe her as an incredibly loving. On the evening of November 7th, a mundane request set in motion an irreversible tragedy. Around 10 p.m, Lindsay was asked to fetch a packet of cornflakes from the local Spar supermarket on Crown Street. Before heading to the shop, she made a brief stop, dipping into the Trades Club at Home Street, a local pub where her mother Jerry was meeting friends. There she secured the money for her errand, a seemingly innocuous exchange in the warm, congenial atmosphere of the pub. The air outside carried the damp scent of fallen leaves and the distant murmur of the River Calder. This small, familiar journey was one Lindsay had likely made countless times before. The streets, though dark, were known to her, each turn and shadowed doorway part of her everyday world. She was a cautious girl, according to those who knew her, unlikely to stray or willingly engage with strangers. As the minute hand of the clock crept towards 10:30, ordinary began its slow, chilling transformation into the inexplicable. This was the last moment of Lindsay's ordinary life, a threshold she crossed unknowingly, leaving behind the warmth of home and for the darkness that would swallow her whole. The last confirmed sighting of Lindsay Rimer remains a stark, unsettling fragment of time. At 10:22 p.m, she was seen on the grainy CCTV footage of the Spar shop, completing her purchase of the cornflakes. The exact change from this small transition would be, months later, tell its own silent story. The last image of her leaning against the wall by the bus stop at the end of Crown Street was witnessed by a couple of bus passengers, and then nothing. Night consumed her. The gaslights of Hebden Bridge cast long, dancing shadows, but they offered no witness to her true fate. Her mother, Jerry, arrived home, assumed Lindsay had returned and gone straight to bed. It was not until the harsh light of the following morning, November 8th, that the first tendrils of dread began to snake through the Rimer household. Lindsay had an early morning paper round, a routine she never missed. When the newsagents called the family home to report her absence, panic began its slow and suffocating creep. Her paper round bag and school money were still in the kitchen, stark reminders that she had not returned. Racing upstairs, her parents discovered her bed was empty. Lindsay was gone. The police were called, and with that, as her sister Kate would recall, everything in their lives changed. The initial response was swift, yet tinged with a devastating misjudgment. Despite fervent denials from her family, police initially speculated that Lindsay might have been a runaway, citing unsubstantiated claims of problems at home. This theory, though later dismissed, cost crucial time in the immediate aftermath of her disappearance. Searches began desperate and wide-ranging. The dense woodland covering the surrounding hillsides, the meandering River Calder, and the Rochdale Canal itself was scoured on foot by police, mountain rescue teams, and the anguished people of Hebden Bridge. In an era before the ubiquitous presence of mobile phones and on-street cameras, Lindsay had, it seemed, simply vanished into thin air. The valley held its breath, waiting for a sign that never came. The weeks turned into months, each passing day deepening the chasm of uncertainty for the Rimer family. The initial flurry of activity, the televised appeals, the haunting reconstruction of Lindsay's last known movements, in which her older sister Kate bravely played her part, slowly faded. Media interest waned, and the exhaustive searches were gradually scaled back. The paperwork in the incident room mounted a silent testament to the detectives' bafflement. The raw wound of Lindsay's absence festered, become a cold, aching despair. Her family described living in a state of unresolved grief, a life sentence as they waited for answers. Then, 5 months after Lindsay disappeared, as winter grudgingly gave way to the tentative promises of spring, the Rochdale Canal offered up its grim truth. On April 12, 1995, 2 canal workers engaged in dredging operations made a horrifying discovery at Rawdon Mill Lock, approximately 1 mile from the centre of Hebden Bridge. Dislodged by their work, a concrete boulder, heavy and unforgiving, surfaced. Beneath it, tragically intertwined, was Lindsay's body. The men, traumatised by the sight, knew immediately who it must be. Everyone in Hebden Bridge knew about Lindsay. The revelation was a fresh agony for the family, ending in one enduring heartache only to begin another. It also exposed a critical misstep in the initial investigation. Police openly admitted that the specific section of the canal where Lindsay was found had not been part of earlier searches. A crucial mistake, they had conceded, as they had failed to search upstream from Lindsay's home, despite the possibility of water currents moving her body. The depths of the canal had held their secret, and in doing so had added another layer of torment to an already unbearable mystery. The discovery of Lindsay's body transformed a missing persons inquiry into a murder investigation. Post-mortem examination was concluded at Royal Halifax Infirmary by Home Office pathologist Mike Green, who swiftly concluded that the cause of death, strangulation. The larynx had been flattened against the spinal column, and signs of congestion were noted across middle of her neck muscles, yet in detail it would complicate the narrative. There were no signs of sexual assault, leading Green to conclude the attack was not of a sexual nature. Lindsay was found fully dressed in the same clothes she had worn on the night she vanished. Still in her pocket, undisturbed, was the exact change from the cornflakes he had bought. The jumper's arms had been tied together, fashioned into a sling, and the 20-pound concrete boulder that weighed her down was later identified as having come from the side of the canal itself. The killer had chosen a method of concealment, a silent burial in the water's embrace. Detectives quickly formed a chilling theory. Lindsay was likely killed on the very night of her disappearance, her body placed in the canal hours before she was even reported missing. Given her cautious nature and the absence of any struggle caught on CCTV, investigators believed she would not have willingly entered a vehicle with a stranger. This led to the deeply unsettling conclusion that she must have known her killer, perhaps someone she had met recently, an older brother or a friend. The section of the canal where the body lay, adjacent to a factory that lacked nighttime security, also suggested the killer possessed a local knowledge of the area, a place where their grim act might also go undisturbed. The investigation, sprawling in its scope, saw thousands of interviewed, hundreds of vehicles examined, and numerous criminals, like John Taylor and John Oswin, considered then ruled out, as no evidence ever linked them to Lindsay's murder. Early leads, such as a red Honda Civic and a driver seen approaching other teenage girls, including some of Lindsay's friends, were also pursued. This Honda man was eventually ruled out due to a solid alibi. The evidence, though speaking volumes, and the killer's brutality, calculated actions remained frustratingly mute about their identity. The decades that followed Lindsay Rimer's murder were marked by a persistent, grinding search for answers. Her family, particularly her sisters Kate and Juliet, carried their immense burden of unresolved grief, a prison sentence of 30 years without justice. They continued to make heartfelt appeals, their voices echoing across the valley, pleading with anyone to inform or to come forward. The passage of time brought with it the promise of scientific advancement. In 2016, a significant breakthrough emerged. West Yorkshire Police announced they had successfully isolated a DNA profile, which they believed could lead them closer to the killer. This new forensic evidence reignited hope and led to fresh investigative activity. In November of that year, 22 years after Lindsay's disappearance, a 63-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of a murder, only to be later released on police bail. 5 months later, in April 2017, a second suspect, aged 68, was arrested in Bradford, but he too was eventually released without charge. Despite these arrests, the case remained frustratingly cold, a testament to the killer's ability to evade justice. However, the commitment of West Yorkshire Police never wavered. Detective Chief Inspector James Entwistle, the new lead detective, reiterated the belief that the killer might be someone already known to investigators. And then, in October of 2025, a new development, 31 years after Lindsay vanished, jolted the cold case back into the public consciousness. A man already serving a custodial sentence for other offences was arrested in prison on suspicion of Lindsay Rimer's murder. He is currently being questioned with police and approaching potential witnesses on Hebden Bridge and Halifax areas. This recent arrest, a stark reminder that the case and jury power symbolises the enduring hope that closure, even after more than 3 decades has passed since Lindsay's life was cruelly taken. For 3 decades, the name Lindsay Rimer has been a whisper, silent plea carried on the wind through the Calder Valley. Her murder remains unsolved, haunting scar on the fabric of Hebden Bridge, picturesque beauty of the town, yet the chilling shadow cast by truth has stubbornly refused to reveal its full self. Her story is a stark reminder of the vulnerability inherent on the ordinary, of how swiftly a simple errand can become an evocative journey into the unknown. We are left with lingering questions, cold fragments of brutal act. Who was the individual who lured or forced Lindsay into their vehicle? What knowledge did they possess of the quiet canal side factory, a place ripe for concealment? What was the motive behind such a calculated non-sexual strangulation? The discovery of the Cornflakes change still in her pocket speaks to the swiftness and perhaps the opportunistic nature of crime. Or a killer so assured, so detached as to leave such a detail untouched. The recent arrest in October of 2025, though offering a glimmer of hope, is a fragile thread in this tapestry woven with years of pain of unanswered questions. Lindsay's family, in their unwavering pursuit of justice, have articulated the profound emotional toll, living a life sentence of grief while her killer walked free. The weight of this unspoken truth continues to press upon Hebden Bridge and the community forever marked by the disappearance of a 13-year-old girl who simply went out to buy cornflakes. We may never know or fully comprehend the darkness that fell upon Lindsay that night, but the echoes of her story compel us to remember, to reflect, and to hope that one day the chilling weight of truth will finally bring peace. Till next time, take care of yourself. Stay safe.